What if I told you that being nice is the one thing that could be holding you back in life? The advice to simply be nice might sound harmless, even noble. But when it becomes your only strategy, it could very well be the reason you're stuck. Let's dig deeper. What does it mean to truly stand tall in life? It's not about smiling and agreeing with everyone, avoiding conflicts, and hoping for approval. True strength lies in asserting your beliefs, not blending into the background. But how can you achieve that? You're not weak for setting boundaries, but you might be if you don't. In a world that rewards convenience over conviction, it's time to realize that the way to true respect isn't by appeasing others, but by standing firm in your own power. Keep reading to find out why niceness is nothing but a shield and what you need instead. Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about something that has been misunderstood for far too long: niceness. From a young age, we're often told, just be nice, and everything will work out. It sounds simple, doesn't it? But here's the harsh truth. If your strategy for success with women or in life, in general, is merely to be nice, you're setting yourself up for failure. Niceness is not strength. It's often a shield, a defense mechanism against rejection, discomfort, and conflict. It's a way to avoid confrontation, but what it really hides is fear. A man who is just nice has surrendered his own power in favor of social acceptance. He's not driven by deep conviction, but by the desperate need for approval. He doesn't stand firm in his belief, she bends. He appeases and he conforms, and in doing so, he loses his identity. A man who is only nice isn't respected, he's merely tolerated. He fades into the background, blending into the sea of people too afraid to assert themselves. Instead of creating validation, he waits for it to be handed to him. He tiptoes through life, avoiding offense in the hope that it will lead to acceptance. But here's the thing. Acceptance is not given to those who lack substance. It's given to those who carry themselves with certainty, with direction, with an unshakable foundation. Niceness is often mistaken for morality. But true morality is not passive. It's not about hiding behind polite smiles or agreeable nods. Real morality is rooted in strength, the strength to do what is right, not what is easy. A man who is afraid of saying no, who can't draw boundaries or stand his ground, is not a good man. He is a weak man, and weakness does not command admiration. Weakness invites exploitation. The world does not reward those who shrink themselves, nor does it respect those who cower in the face of confrontation. Those who merely aim to please are not seen as valuable, they're seen as expendable. They exist to serve the interests of others, not because they're respected, but because they're convenient. And convenience? It's never admired. It's used and discarded. A man who avoids conflict is not peaceful. He's afraid. He tells himself that by being agreeable, he's building harmony, but in truth, he's surrendering his own authority. He's betraying his own needs and desires. This approach might seem harmless, even noble, but in reality, it only leads to one place: a life of mediocrity and self-doubt. And the worst part? You lose yourself along the way. So, what's the real key to gaining respect and living authentically? It starts with finding your own voice and standing firm in your beliefs. In the next part, we'll explore how to build that strength and begin living the life you were meant to live. Stay tuned. Building on what we discussed, early earnestness, when used as a shield, only serves to diminish a man's power. Now, let's explore why standing up for yourself is not just important, but essential. A man who refuses to stand up for himself becomes invisible. He surrenders his own desires, his sense of self, and in doing so, he fades into the background. He'll never be truly seen. He will never be taken seriously, nor will he leave any lasting impact. Power is not found in avoidance, it's found in the ability to face difficulty head-on, to confront discomfort, and to stand unwavering in the presence of opposition. Strength is not about aggression. It's about knowing when action is required, when to speak up, and when to stand firm. A man who holds the capacity for power yet keeps it under control is far more respected than a man who lacks that capacity entirely. Without strength, a man is harmless, and harmlessness is not nobility. People respect those who have the ability to dominate, but choose not to. A man who is capable of great force but exercises restraint carries far more respect than one who has no force to begin with. Niceness, when stripped of strength, becomes empty. It's a mere act of survival, an attempt to get by without ever stepping into one's true potential. A man who only seeks to please is one who doesn't believe in his own worth. He mistakenly thinks that in order to be accepted, he must submit, agree, and accommodate relentlessly. But here's the truth. A man who respects himself doesn't seek validation. He doesn't beg for approval. He doesn't sacrifice his dignity in exchange for the acceptance of others. He moves through life with certainty, knowing that his value isn't determined by the approval of those around him. The uncomfortable truth is this. People test boundaries. They push to see where the limits lie. They don't respect those who allow themselves to be walked over. A man who never pushes back, who never asserts himself, and who never makes it clear where he stands will never be seen as strong. And strength? Strength is the foundation of respect. A man who is only nice becomes forgettable. He blends into the background, indistinguishable from countless others who have failed to stand for something. But a man who is grounded in his values, who isn't afraid to take up space, make his voice heard, and act with conviction, he is remembered. He leaves an imprint on the world. He doesn't chase approval, it follows him. He doesn't seek admiration, yet he earns it. A man who is too agreeable has not yet realized his own potential. He hasn't discovered that true respect is born from competence, from action, from the ability to make difficult choices. He hasn't grasped that people do not admire those who fade into the background. They admire those who have the courage to stand apart. In the next section, we'll explore how you can break free from the trap of constant agreement and begin to take control of your own narrative. It's time to step out from the shadows and stand tall in the world. Building on our previous discussion about how being overly agreeable can lead to losing yourself, let's dive deeper into how this self-sacrifice, while seeming harmless, can rob you of your true power. A man who continuously sacrifices his own growth, suppresses his instincts, and silences his voice is not only losing his sense of self, but also becoming a mere reflection of what he thinks others want him to be. Rather than being an authentic expression of who he truly is, he becomes a shadow of others' expectations. In doing so, he fades into the background, completely losing his individuality. Niceness will not shield him from hardship, it will not protect him from rejection, nor will it help him achieve the life he truly desires. The world is not moved by those who aim solely to be liked. It is moved by those who dare to take risks, to speak with conviction, and to act with purpose. Niceness alone will never be enough. It cannot replace competence, courage, or greatness. A man must be capable of more. He must be willing to do what is difficult, to embrace the discomfort that comes with standing firm in his beliefs. True respect is not handed out freely. It is earned through action, through showing up consistently with strength and determination. Women are not drawn to men who exist only to please. They are not moved by those who shrink themselves to avoid disagreement. They do not admire men who lack conviction, who hesitate or ask permission to exist. A man desperate for approval doesn't inspire admiration, he repels it. He is tolerated but never respected, noticed but never truly desired. Attraction is not built on obedience. A man who always agrees, who always yields, and who never asserts his own will is not admired. He is seen as weak. Women may claim they want a nice guy, but deep down, what they truly crave is a man who possesses strength, who carries himself with an undeniable presence, someone who commands attention without having to force it. A man who follows instead of leads is not a man who will be respected or admired. He is predictable, and predictability breeds indifference. A man who avoids conflict, who refuses to take a stand or fears upsetting others, is not one who holds power in any relationship. He becomes an accessory, a placeholder existing within the parameters set by others, never stepping beyond them, never daring to establish his own path. Women do not long for a man who disappears into the background. They long for a man who is present, who owns his space in the world with confidence and certainty. When a man seeks approval above all else, he sacrifices his own identity. He filters his thoughts, softens his words, and molds himself into whatever he believes will make him more likable. But in doing so, he loses the very thing that makes him compelling: his authenticity. A man who lacks authenticity lacks depth. A man who lacks depth lacks substance, and a man who lacks substance is quickly forgotten. Strength is not about dominance. It's about presence. It's about carrying oneself with purpose and direction, with the quiet certainty that your value doesn't depend on anyone else's approval. In the next part, we'll explore how to build that kind of presence, how to strengthen your core, and how to finally stop hiding behind niceness to become the man you were always meant to be. Stay tuned. Continuing from where we left off, let's explore further why true strength doesn't lie in seeking validation or approval, but in standing firm in your own worth. A man who knows his own value does not beg for validation. He does not chase approval from others. Instead, he stands firm in who he is, unwavering, and in doing so, he naturally commands respect. Women are not drawn to uncertainty. They do not look to men who hesitate, who seek permission, or who tread carefully in every interaction. Attraction is built on certainty, the ability to take decisive action, the confidence to make choices without waiting for validation. A man who cannot make decisions is a man who cannot be trusted with responsibility, and a man who cannot be trusted with responsibility will never be seen as a leader. When a man prioritizes compliance over conviction, he lacks direction. He is the kind of man who waits to be led rather than taking the lead himself. He avoids discomfort instead of embracing it. And here's the reality. A man who is afraid of discomfort is a man who will never grow. He will never push beyond his limits, never become more than what he is today. When a man suppresses his own opinions, when he hides his true nature, when he bites his tongue instead of speaking his truth, he's not being kind, he's being weak. And weakness? It does not inspire admiration. It does not evoke desire, nor does it earn respect. A man who cannot stand for something will always be seen as lesser than a man who does. Women are not drawn to submission. They're drawn to the man who challenges them, the one who pushes them to think, the one who refuses to be a mere echo of their thoughts. They don't want a mirror. They want a force. They want a man who can hold his own, who is not shaken by disagreement, who does not crumble under pressure. A man who is too afraid to speak his mind will never be truly valued. There is no strength in bending to every expectation. There is no respect in being endlessly accommodating. There is no admiration for the man who lives solely to please. Women are drawn to men who carry themselves with certainty, who are grounded in their own principles, and who refuse to compromise their integrity for the sake of approval. A man who lacks direction is a man who is easily replaced. He doesn't stand out. He doesn't create impact. He doesn't leave a lasting impression. He exists in the periphery, never at the center, never the one who commands attention. Women do not remember the man who merely exists to agree. They remember the man who made them feel something real, the one who challenged them, who stood his ground with unwavering confidence. A man who does not believe in himself will never inspire belief in others. A man who is unsure of himself will never instill certainty in those around him. A man who hesitates, who holds back, who waits for permission, he is invisible. His influence is non-existent. In the next section, we'll explore how you can begin to build the kind of self-assurance and confidence that draws respect and admiration naturally. Stay tuned as we uncover the secrets to becoming the man who is impossible to ignore. Picking up from where we left off, we've seen how true power comes from standing firm in your own identity and purpose. Now, let's dive deeper into why waiting for permission and living for the approval of others only weakens a man. A man who waits to be told what to do, who lacks the ability to lead, will never be seen as powerful. And power, not brute force or control, is at the core of attraction. It's the quiet, unshakable power of a man who knows exactly who he is. This is the kind of power that commands respect, not through force, but through authenticity. Compliance is not connection. It doesn't foster respect, and it certainly doesn't build attraction. A man who believes that simply being agreeable will earn him admiration is fundamentally disconnected from human nature. Women do not admire men who fear them, they admire men who respect themselves. A man who respects himself does not chase validation. He does not shape his identity based on the preferences of others. He does not fear disagreement because he understands that conflict is not the enemy weakness is. And weakness? It is born from the inability to stand firm, from the fear of rejection, from the unwillingness to risk discomfort for the sake of truth. A man who does not set boundaries will never be valued. He will be used, manipulated, taken advantage of, but he will never be respected. Respect is earned by those who demand it, not through force, but through the unwavering certainty that they will not accept less than what they deserve. Women do not respect men who allow themselves to be walked over. They respect men who establish limits, who hold themselves to high standards, and who refuse to compromise their worth for the sake of fleeting approval. There is nothing compelling about a man who needs permission to be himself. There is no attraction to a man who is too afraid to take the lead. There is no desire for a man who doesn't know his own mind. Women don't want a man who exists only to serve. They want a man who exists with purpose, with drive, with a vision that extends beyond the need for validation. The men who leave the strongest impression are the ones who don't seek to be liked. They seek to be respected. They seek challenges. They seek to push themselves beyond comfort, beyond fear, beyond the limits that hold others back. Women are drawn to men who inspire, who lead, who move through the world with confidence and certainty. A man who hesitates is a man who is overlooked. A man who waits for permission is a man who is forgotten. A man who silences himself to avoid discomfort is a man who will never be truly desired. Women do not admire men who shrink. They admire men who rise. A man who looks outward for validation will always be at the mercy of others. He will never know true confidence because his worth will be dictated by the opinions of those around him, opinions that shift like the wind. He is fragile, easily broken by rejection, lost without approval, desperate for recognition. But that recognition will never be enough. He does not live for himself. He lives as a reflection of what he believes others want him to be, and in doing so, he becomes invisible. In the next section, we'll explore how you can begin to shift this mindset and step into a life where you stand for something, where you lead, with confidence, self-respect, and the clarity of purpose that makes you impossible to ignore. Stay with us as we uncover the steps to building that unshakable foundation. Picking up from the last section, we've seen that respect isn't given to those who seek it passively. Now, let's dive into why a man who fails to build himself first, who lacks direction and discipline, will never truly be valued. A man who does not build himself first has nothing to offer. He is empty, devoid of substance, a shell waiting to be filled by the expectations of others. He wonders why he is overlooked, why he isn't respected, why others don't see his value. But here's the truth. Respect is not something given to those who seek it desperately. It is earned by those who command it. And commanding respect is impossible without competence. A man who is weak, undisciplined, and directionless will never earn admiration, no matter how much he craves it. The world does not care for the man who waits. It does not reward passivity. It doesn't elevate those who refuse to take responsibility for their own potential. A man who drifts through life, avoiding hardship, rejecting growth, and making excuses for his mediocrity is a man who will be forgotten. No one looks to him for leadership. No one sees him as valuable. No one respects the man who cannot respect himself enough to demand more from his own existence. A man who lacks purpose is a man who is easily discarded. He does not move with intent. He does not stand with conviction. He does not inspire confidence. He follows the path of least resistance, avoiding difficulty, embracing comfort, and hoping that simply existing will be enough to earn him rewards. But here's the reality. Existence is not enough. A man must become something greater than himself. He must forge himself into someone worthy of admiration not through words, but through action, through discipline, through relentless self-improvement. A weak man believes that being liked is the key to success. A strong man understands that being capable is the foundation of respect. No one admires the man who is agreeable but ineffective. No one is drawn to the man who is kind but incompetent. Kindness is meaningless if it is not backed by strength. Niceness without backbone is nothing more than an invitation to be overlooked. A man who seeks validation through others will never find it in himself. He will be trapped in an endless cycle of seeking approval, bending to expectations, and sacrificing his own potential for the comfort of acceptance. But acceptance, when given to a version of himself that isn't real, is meaningless. A man who doesn't know himself, who doesn't develop himself, who doesn't push beyond his weaknesses, will never be respected. At best, he will be tolerated and at worst, discarded. A man must become worthy of admiration before he seeks it. He must cultivate his mind, sharpen his skills, forge his body into something capable and strong. He must develop the discipline to control his impulses, the wisdom to navigate the world with clarity, and the resilience to withstand hardship without breaking. If he does not, he will always be at the mercy of those around him, never in control of his own fate. In the next part, we'll explore how to begin this journey of self-improvement, how to build the foundation that will allow you to live a life of power, respect, and true fulfillment. Stay with us as we uncover the steps to becoming the man you were always meant to be. Building on the idea we explored earlier, that confidence comes from competence, let's now dive deeper into how a man's growth through discipline, responsibility, and self-mastery ultimately leads to respect and admiration. A man who fails to grow will always remain weak. He will wonder why no one notices him, why no one desires him, why he's constantly overlooked. The truth? He has done nothing to become worthy of attention. He spent his life hiding from challenge, running from discomfort, and avoiding the very struggles that would shape him into someone who cannot be ignored. He's chosen comfort over greatness, passivity over progress, mediocrity over mastery, and, for that, he remains invisible. Strength is built through challenge. A man who fears difficulty is a man who will never be strong. A man who avoids discipline will never be respected. A man who rejects responsibility will never lead. No one is drawn to the man who cannot control himself. No one admires the man who crumbles under pressure. No one is inspired by the man who waits for someone else to give him direction. A man must create himself or risk being created by others. A weak man makes excuses. A strong man finds solutions. A weak man blames the world. A strong man takes responsibility. A weak man waits for opportunities. A strong man creates them. The difference between failure and success is not luck, it is discipline. It is the willingness to suffer, to sacrifice, and to push through pain without looking for an easy way out. And that willingness is what separates those who are respected from those who are ignored. A man who does not challenge himself will never grow. He will remain stagnant, comfortable in his mediocrity, and resentful of those who surpass him. He will look at successful men with jealousy, not understanding that the difference between them is not talent or luck, but effort, consistency, and an unrelenting refusal to accept anything less than greatness. Weak men envy strong men because they are unwilling to do what is necessary to become them. A man who relies on others for validation is a man who will always be controlled. He will mold himself to fit the expectations of others, afraid to step outside the lines, terrified of standing alone. But greatness is not found in following the crowd. It is found in carving your own path, in taking risks, and in embracing the struggle that others run from. A man who lives with conviction and strength not only builds his own life, but attracts respect, admiration, and opportunities. This journey toward greatness doesn't come with shortcuts. It comes with the willingness to face discomfort and challenge head on. In the next section, we will explore how to develop this resilience and discipline to truly create the life you deserve. Stay tuned as we uncover the steps to making yourself the man who cannot be ignored. Building on our previous point about how a man's growth and self-respect directly influence how he's perceived, let's now explore why true admiration comes from a man who takes ownership of his life and purpose. A man who is unwilling to face difficulty will never know success. He will spend his life living in the shadow of those who dared to push beyond their limits. There is no respect for a man who does not respect himself. There is no admiration for a man who refuses to develop himself. There is no desire for a man who has nothing to offer. Women are not drawn to men who seek approval. They are drawn to men who are grounded, who are certain, and who move through life with an unshakable confidence. This confidence comes from knowing they've earned their place, from the knowledge that their value is built through action and self-mastery. A man who has built himself doesn't beg for attention, he commands it. A man who waits for permission to be great will never be great. He will spend his life on the sidelines, watching others succeed, wondering why he was never chosen. But life does not choose for you. It does not hand you success, it does not gift you admiration, and it certainly does not grant you respect. These things are earned, they are fought for. They are built through discipline, sacrifice, and relentless effort. A man who does not fight for his own potential will never reach it. The difference between a man who is respected and one who is forgotten is simple. One chooses to build himself, while the other chooses to remain the same. One embraces challenge, while the other runs from it. One controls his life, while the other is controlled by it. Strength is not given, it is earned. Respect is not granted, it is claimed. A man must develop himself first, or he will always be at the mercy of those who did. A man who places women above his own mission will always find himself lost. He will wonder why his devotion is not returned, why his sacrifices are not appreciated, and why his endless efforts to please are met with indifference. But admiration is not given to the man who orbits around another. It is given to the man who stands in his own gravity, who moves with purpose, who does not place his value in the hands of anyone else. A man who makes a woman his priority over his own growth is a man who has already failed. He is not respected because he does not respect himself. He is not desired because he does not desire more for himself. He is not admired because admiration is not given to those who abandon their own purpose in pursuit of approval. A man who seeks fulfillment through another has nothing of his own to offer. He is empty, waiting to be filled, desperate to be completed by someone who can sense his lack of substance. Women do not admire men who follow, they admire men who lead. They are drawn to the man who does not need permission to chase his ambitions, who does not hesitate in the face of resistance, who does not soften his edges for the sake of approval. A man who knows his worth, who knows his purpose, and who is not afraid to pursue it with everything he has, is the man who commands attention. In the next section, we'll explore how you can begin taking the first steps to lead your own life with purpose, how to embrace discomfort, and how to cultivate that strength that attracts the respect you deserve. Stay with us as we break down the path to true fulfillment and power. Building on our previous points about how a man must first build himself before he can build a meaningful relationship, let's dive deeper into why self-reliance and purpose are at the core of true attraction. A man who bends, who adjusts, who alters his own nature to accommodate the expectations of others is a man who loses himself, and a man who is lost will never be seen as strong. A man must first build himself before he can build a relationship. A man who doesn't know where he is going cannot lead. A man who lacks vision cannot inspire. A man who does not stand firm in his purpose cannot be relied upon. Women may seek companionship, but they do not long for a man who clings to them for direction. They do not admire the man who places them at the center of his existence while his own life remains unfulfilled. A man who chases women instead of success will always end up with neither. He invests his time, his energy, and his emotions into something that doesn't provide the foundation for his greatness. He becomes dependent, waiting for affection, longing for validation, and structuring his choices around the approval of another. But a man who builds, who creates, and who moves forward with relentless drive does not need to chase. He attracts. Attraction is never given to the man who has abandoned his own path. The world does not respect those who beg for attention. It does not reward those who sacrifice their own ambitions in the hope of being chosen. It does not elevate those who make others their purpose instead of carving out their own. A man must be something before he can expect to be wanted. He must carry the weight of his own potential. He must forge himself into something undeniable. He must create value before he demands recognition. A man who is driven is a man who is noticed. He does not seek approval because he does not need it. He does not compromise his time for trivial distractions because he understands the cost. He does not lose himself in pursuit of another because he knows that his path is his own, that his journey is what defines him. His value is built in what he creates, not in how much he is liked. A man who builds is a man who commands respect. Respect is given to those who make themselves undeniable. When a man centers his world around a woman, he becomes smaller. He makes himself secondary. He trades his own ambitions for the comfort of being needed, of being accepted, of being someone's choice. But a man who is chosen only because he is available is not truly wanted. He is convenient, not captivating. He is tolerated, not admired. He is there, but he is not essential. And a man who is not essential is a man who will always be forgotten. A man must establish his mission before he seeks companionship. He must know who he is, what he is willing to fight for, and what he stands for. Only then can he be the kind of man who is truly valued not for his availability, but for his strength, vision, and undeniable presence. In the next part, we'll discuss how to establish that mission and how to build a life that commands admiration and respect. Stay with us as we dive into the steps that will transform you into the man who is never overlooked. Continuing from the idea we've explored, how a man must build himself first to earn respect, let's now delve deeper into why a man's foundation, his sense of self, and his unwavering purpose are critical to standing out and commanding admiration. A man who refuses to compromise on his values must have a foundation that is unshakable sense of self that does not waver with the shifting expectations of others. If he doesn't, he will always be adjusting, always following, always shaping himself to fit the mold of what someone else desires. And in doing so, he will never truly be seen. A man who leads his own life is a man who commands attention. He does not plead for it. He does not shape himself to be more likable. He does not abandon his own priorities to fit into the life of another. He is driven by something greater than approval. He is fueled by something deeper than the need to be wanted. He moves with purpose, and it is that purpose which separates those who are admired from those who are ignored. A weak man believes that love is given to those who give the most. A strong man understands that love is drawn to those who need it the least. The man who is independent, who is self-sufficient, who is complete in his own ambition, is the man who never lacks admiration. He does not seek validation, and in doing so, he receives it. He does not beg for attention, and in doing so, he commands it. He is not desperate for approval, and in doing so, he earns respect without asking for it. A man who is obsessed with seeking affection loses the very qualities that make him attractive. He softens, he hesitates, he becomes fearful of risk, of challenge, of pushing against what is expected of him. He does not want to upset, to offend, or to stand alone. But standing alone is what makes a man powerful. It is what sets him apart. It is what makes him irreplaceable. A man who fears standing apart will always be overlooked. There is no strength in neediness. There is no power in dependence. There is no admiration for the man who structures his life around another while neglecting his own. A man who builds his world upon the presence of someone else is a man who will crumble when that presence is gone. Nothing is more unattractive than a man who cannot stand on his own. A man who dedicates himself to his mission does not have to seek admiration. He earns it through his actions, through his accomplishments, and through his unwavering commitment to something greater than himself. He does not lose himself in the pursuit of others. He does not surrender his time for meaningless distractions. He does not trade his ambition for the fleeting comfort of acceptance. He is relentless, and that relentlessness is what makes him stand apart. A man who leads will always be respected more than a man who follows. A man who builds will always be admired more than a man who waits. A man who stands on his own will always be desired more than a man who needs someone to complete him. Women do not long for the man who is available. They long for the man who is exceptional. Men do not chase, do not plead, and do not bend. They rise, they conquer, they create, and the world follows. A man who lives for approval will never be respected. A man who seeks validation will never be admired. A man who abandons his own mission in pursuit of acceptance will never be truly desired. Strength is not given, it is built. Respect is not begged for, it is commanded. Admiration is not granted to those who wait it is earned by those who act. Women are not drawn to men who exist to serve them. They are drawn to men who stand firm, who lead with confidence, and who refuse to compromise their own purpose for the sake of fleeting affection. The man who follows is forgotten. The man who pleases is overlooked. The man who chases is dismissed. But the man who builds, who creates, who rises, despite opposition, that man is remembered. That man is respected. That man is irreplaceable. Do not be the man who waits for permission. Do not be the man who sells himself for the comfort of others. Do not be the man who sacrifices his own potential for the illusion of security. Be the man who builds himself first. Be the man who stands alone if necessary. Be the man who leads with conviction, who embraces challenge, and who does not need to be chosen because he chooses himself. In the next section, we'll dive into how to solidify your mission, how to harness that inner drive, and how to start creating a life where you no longer seek approval, but instead command the respect and admiration you deserve. Stay tuned as we break down the steps that will propel you toward this undeniable, powerful version of yourself.